So I guess I'm going to answer some questions.
Nice.
Look, no, the camera's right there. I'm super ready. I can do this. I'm a professional. Is this weird? Hey, I'm here. Nice to meet you, yeah? Is that what I'm saying? You gotta be kidding. I'm not cussing. Could be bad. Here we go. Okay, so I got a couple questions that were sent to me via Instagram, and they were about a lot of different topics. So I'm gonna have to do actual videos on each of these topics to be able to explain them the way that I feel like I need to explain them. But until then, I just wanted to give you guys a quick overview of the questions that I was asked. There was 3 really, really good ones, and I wanted to be able to answer them. 1, to honor the people that asked the questions, and 2, to be able to start thinking through what I really want to say about each of these topics. So the first thing somebody asked me was it hard for you to step into ministry, to step into I'm assuming they meant like vocational ministry, and how did it affect you? How did it affect other people? Was it difficult? I don't know if this is for everyone, so just know that I only can speak from experience. But for me, it wasn't hard. I think I was about 17 years old when I felt like God was calling me into full-time ministry, and I didn't have a plan B. Like I didn't go, hey, I'm gonna go to college just in case, which I feel like you should. I didn't have a plan B. I jumped straight into vocational ministry, and even when I didn't work for a church, I was doing some kind of ministry. So whether it was starting a non-for-profit, whether it was through my media company at the time, I always was doing some form of ministry, leading worship, writing, teaching, doing something, because I always felt called to it. It was something in my bones. It wasn't like if I don't do it, I could always do something else. Now, yes, my job is very different. Like I work for a church, so I am in vocational ministry, but my job is, I'm in a creative team. I oversee it as design and film team. So, but ministry to me is not working for a church. Ministry for me is living for Jesus and being a light in the darkness. So I never looked at it like I had to work for a church to be in ministry. So if you're out there and you're like, oh, do I quit my job and go work for a church? That's different. That's a different question altogether. I'd say if you want to work for a church, cool. It's not easy. It's actually very difficult. It's one of the hardest jobs I've ever had, for a number of reasons, and I'll talk about it in length in another video. But I love my job, and I love getting to work for the local church, as I'm a local church girl and I believe in it. But it's not for everyone. It's fast-paced and ever-changing, and if you're not a person that can deal with change all the time and really embracing other people's vision, I would say that maybe it's not for you. But if you are somebody that you really want to be in ministry and you're like, Chari, I feel called to ministry, good. If you want to be a pastor, pastor people right where you're at. If you want to be on the mission field, look at the mission field you're on right now. You don't have to be in Africa to be a missionary. If you're a worship leader, I'd ask you, how many times are you worshiping God when no one else is around? Ministry doesn't mean you have to work for a church. It just means you need to love Jesus right where you are. So I hope that answers your question. I'll talk more about this in another episode. All right, the other question I got is loaded. So I'm definitely gonna have to do like 4 of these videos for this one question. I talk a little bit about infertility on my podcast, and I've talked a lot about it on my blog. So if you're a person that's battling infertility, let me just say, first off, I feel you. You are loved. You are not less. It is not a battle that you have to fight, that you have the victory in Jesus. And I'm sorry for all the friggin' weirdos that ask you questions. So the question I got was, how do you deal with people asking you about kids and deal with it with grace without losing it? Okay, I'm not gonna lie. It used to really frustrate me. I used to lose my mind on people because I'm 37 years old. I found out when I was 30 years old that I wouldn't be able to have kids. And I'll be honest with you, it hasn't always been an easy journey for me. I used to want to punch people in the face every time they asked me something, because I'm like, that's just really intrusive and weird. Let's not ask questions. And I actually wrote an entire blog about things you shouldn't ask people, and I'll eventually talk about it. But I would say this: if you're a person who is currently walking through the journey of infertility, I just have a couple things to say to you. One, first things first. The Lord said, be fruitful and multiply. And just because you can't be fruitful on this side of heaven doesn't mean you're not fruitful. You have kingdom ability and kingdom impact, okay? What you birth in the flesh has nothing to do with your kingdom impact. What you birth in the spirit does. So knowing that, that should be your focus on how you reply. So when people ask me, hey Chari, why you guys don't have kids? I usually say something kind of inappropriate that I'm not going to say now because then it'll be on video. I usually say something along the lines of, it's just not on the cards for us, or I usually say stuff like, I just really enjoy waking up at 11 o'clock, or I take a lot of vacations, or I just make jokes because, to be honest with you, people are weird and they ask really intrusive questions. And to be honest with you, I don't really want to talk about it. Like, I feel like I don't really need to talk about it. I feel like I have a lot of victory in that area. And so when people ask me why we don't have kids, I just say things along the lines of, it's just really not in the cards for us, or, God had a different plan for us. And usually people at that point will walk away and be like, oh, okay, cool, not ask questions. But then you have about 60% of those people are weirdos and intrusive and continue to ask questions like, well, are you going to adopt? Have you done treatments? Have you done this? That's when I usually kind of put my foot down and I go, hey, you know what? It's kind of a private thing. I just, I really don't have conversations about it. And usually they'll back off. Or if I feel like led of the Lord to say something, I'll usually go, hey, are you dealing with this? Or do you know somebody who's dealing with this? And then it'll open up the opportunity for me to talk about it with them in a proper way, so I don't really talk about it with people, not because I don't want to, not because I don't have a lot to say about it, but because I feel like it's a very private thing, and there's a lot of people really struggling through infertility, and people don't know how to talk about it, especially in the church. It's like really taboo. It's like, oh God, let us lay hands on you, and I think it's awesome when you join faith and believe for that. But I think that we have to be really careful on how we talk about it in the church and in the world and in life, because it makes people feel less if they don't have a good understanding of their self and who God created them to be. So I think I'm gonna have to validate that a lot, so much more. But if you don't want to hear more about it, go to my blog, shrees.org. I think I'm gonna put it like right here, and go search Motherhood and Lack Thereof. I'll probably put it in the notes below so you guys can go there. But I'm gonna do an entire series on this because I think it's super duper important. One, to have etiquette of know how to say and what not to say, and also to understand it for yourself. If you're a person who's walking through infertility, just know that you're loved, and it doesn't make you feel don't let it make you feel less. You're not less. You're awesome, and God has a plan for you. And motherhood is like, yeah, I got so much to say about this. I'm gonna have to stop because I'll talk about this on. The other question I got was about marriage. I've been married for 15 years. I met my husband when I was 14 years old. I asked him to be my date for my quinceañera, and he told me no. And there began our love story. I'll talk about it one day. One day I should have him on. He's funny. He's actually funnier than me. I don't know if you caught that. I think I'm funny. And I steal all his material. He also has a great accent. So we've been married for 15 years. We've been together since 99. God, I'm old. And yeah, marriage advice. If I could give you any marriage advice, I'll just tell you a couple things that Esteban and I kind of like made. Like we made these rules at the very beginning because we both had a lot of expectations and a lot of cultural values that kind of clashed. So for us, first things first, divorce was never an option. We decided that like on day 3 to not even ever bring it up, even in anger, even in like anything. Like, look, we're gonna do this. We're gonna do this forever. You're my forever, and so we better learn how to communicate because we ain't never getting divorced. So I know that sounds crazy, but for us it worked. So what that happened, another thing that we did concerning like arguments and learning how to communicate is we don't leave. So like, in the movies where like people slam the door and they leave because they're fighting and da-da-da, we don't do that. If we're arguing and we're going to blows, no one leaves. You got to stay in the house. There's no, I'm going to come back later, I'm going to go. No. We're staying until we work it out. Now you can go to a room and have a conversation with yourself and pull yourself together and then come back. I'm all for that. We take timeouts in the middle of arguments and we'll go have dinner and then we'll come back to the argument. But we learned that the best way to survive marriage is together. And not to have conversations with other people about what was going on personally, or we always worked it out together. And so if I could give you any marriage advice to anyone who's new and about to get married, I'd say build a team in your house. Build a team, learn how to be a team together, learn how to communicate together, because if you can always be together, you'll survive anything. So yeah, that's all I got today. I have so many more questions, but I feel like this is almost 10 minutes long and no one's gonna stay 10 minutes and watch this except for my mom. So All right. Bye, guys.